my second Floyd tribute band. This was the first band where there were actually a lot of shows happening. When the light hits it different, it turns purple or green, blue, some sparkly looking. It's very, very cool. When I was 11, my dad brought a guitar home. I had wanted to learn to play drums, and my mom said no fucking way. And she wasn't going to listen to that. So my dad brought me a guitar home. I was kind of excited about it, but I didn't learn to play the thing at all. When I was 14, I picked it back up. I actually started to learn some stuff on it, picked up some books. I was a lot more into music by that time and much more interested in playing guitar because of it. And about a year later, I met some guys who were interested in the same kind of music and stuff, and we started playing around together. Started to learn a lot from one another, and that started off as a band called Mantis, but it turned into eventually a band called Deadline, and we wrote a bunch of original music together. Don't have any of it recorded, unfortunately, but we played together for a few years up until I think I was about close to 18. The members of that band were Jesse Buchanan, Jason Tyler played drums, Jesse played guitar. We had a few different bass players, but we landed on Tony Hillier, who eventually stopped playing bass and started singing, and Matt Murray stepped in and started playing bass. That was the Deadline. And I don't know, we had probably 12, 15 songs we had wrote together. From there, I don't remember how that fell apart or whatever. It was so long ago. But I think I spent a couple years not really playing in a band. The weird years between 18 and 21 where you can't get a gig anyway, so. And I think when I was 21, or close to it, I met a guy named Steve Meadows and started teaching him to play bass. And we eventually started jamming around with Jason Tyler on drums again. And we put a band together called Disturbing the Peace, which we named because the cops showed up every time we'd get together and play. We had shitty neighbors and they hated us, and we got a Disturbing the Peace ticket. Anyway, we kind of started playing a lot of Pink Floyd stuff. Like we had 8 or 10 Pink Floyd covers amongst this other stuff we were doing. And we joked around about just being a Floyd tribute. And I kind of come up with the name Lavender Lloyd as a joke. And, well, the Disturbing the Peace drummer situation kept, I don't know what happened. Alcohol, drugs, whatever. But it didn't work out, and that band kind of fell apart as well. The next band I was in was, I was working with Tony Hillier, who had sang with Deadline, played bass and sang. Job we were working at together, we started talking about a Pink Floyd tribute, kind of joking about it at first. And the Lavender Lloyd name came up again as a joke at first. But it ended up coming into fruition. I got a hold of Jason Tyler again on drums. And the three of us started playing nothing but Pink Floyd songs. That's where I learned a lot of these songs, or at least the majority of a lot of these songs that I'm playing now with This One's Pink. But we started getting some shows. Drummer situation didn't work out. I think we got another drummer. His name was Gabe Elias. There was another one before him, actually. Oh, my sister joined. Let me slow down. Let me start this whole section off. The three of us started playing some shows, and eventually my sister started learning to play, and she started playing some keyboards and some acoustic guitar with us, and singing a little bit. Drummer situation didn't work, and I can't remember Kevin's last name, but we had a guy come in named Kevin who worked with us for a few shows, and then the band was kind of on hiatus for a little while. Ended up putting it back together, and we had Gabe Elias playing drums with us. We did a few shows with that lineup, and Gabe didn't want to keep going, and so we had another drummer situation. And my now brother-in-law, Tony Rozier, stepped in and started playing drums with us. We did a couple shows with Tony, and he was so busy he couldn't keep going. And I don't remember us doing anything after that. So I was playing in Lavender Lloyd, and my parents were needing a guitarist and asked me to come fill in with them. Country isn't exactly the first thing that I know how to play, but I can fiddle around. And so I started jamming around with them as well, and had a lot of fun doing all that. I learned some songs I wouldn't have otherwise, like the Ghost Riders in the Sky, some stuff like that. The stuff that they were playing, they had a guitarist named Joe Lloyd, and he played with them for years and years, but he just, I think his hands were really bugging him, arthritis and stuff. Didn't feel like he could do it anymore. So the spot was open. They asked me to do it, and I filled in. It was a lot of fun. That was with my mom, my dad, and Donnie, who passed away, our steel guitar player. He, after that, we kind of quit playing. So that's what happened there. My dad also has arthritis and doesn't really play much anymore. My mom don't play unless he is, so a lot of fun. We had a band, CC Cash. And the next project I was in, I believe, was Funk Knuckle. This was the first band where there were actually a lot of shows happening. Like, I'd played plenty of shows. Like my first one, I believe I was 15. First time I played in a bar. First paid show, I think I was 16, maybe 17. I was pretty young. And I'd played a handful of shows between then and now. But Funk Knuckle, we got together, we were learning, it was about the time when Blink 182 and Foo Fighters and a bunch of those bands were getting popular. Around 2000-ish. A little bit before maybe we got together. We were playing a bunch of that stuff, and we started writing a bunch of music together. Jesse Buchanan, I had worked with before, is in this band as well. That guy can just write songs, like, they just fall out of him. I don't know how they do it. It's never been my strong point, is writing. But he's one of the guitarists I always had a great time working with. He was really talented. He'd come up with ideas, and we worked really well together. And the drummer was Ben Bentlin, and the bass player was Ben Munson. That was Funk Knuckle, and a lot of shows. We had a lot of fun. That was when Club Blues was in its heyday, and we'd regularly get booked weekends there. Well, we had some good times. One time we were supposed to open for the Paul Rogers Band and Blue Oyster Cult at a show at the LaSalle Speedway, and it rained so bad that they canceled the entire thing. But we had a show booked at 9th Street Pub that night, so we went ahead and just got hotel rooms for ourselves. We ended up in the same hallway with the Paul Rogers Band and the Blue Oyster Cult, which it was pretty uneventful for the most part. But at the end of the night, after we had played our gig, I remember the drummer from the Paul Rogers Band came to our room, knocked on the door, and he's in nothing but a Speedo, dude. So we were pretty young. We were like 21-year-olds, you know. And he's like this 40-year-old in a Speedo. It was really uncomfortable. And one of the gals that was with it, I think he wanted a beer, so he holds his hand out. He goes, "What's wrong with this picture?" And one of the girls said, "You don't have any pants on." It's just, "You look like my dad and you don't have any pants on." Oh man, probably the biggest highlight from that show that didn't happen. But let's see. What else did we do? Funk Knuckle. We got kicked out of, well, I don't know if we got kicked out of. We never got invited back to a couple places. We had a nickname. Some people would call us Drunk Knuckle. And, man, yeah. Back when I drank. Anyways, we had a lot of fun. After Funk Knuckle, I don't even remember how that ended. I think the shows just kind of slowed way down and everything, and it just kind of fizzled out. We've got together a couple times just to jam around. Probably have some recordings. I tried to get a hold of some stuff, but struggled. Funk Knuckle. Towards the end of Funk Knuckle, I joined another band playing bass called the Sons of Science. Well, it was called the Humans at the time. Matt Murray, who had played bass in Deadline, was playing bass in this band. Randy Hollister was playing drums, and John McGlasson was playing guitar. It was all original music, like jazz fusion, like rock fusion. It was pretty hard stuff, but adventurous as well, I suppose. Matt was stepping down as a bass player. I believe he was going to go to music school, or I don't remember his exact reasoning necessarily. But I got asked to come and play bass with them, so I started playing bass. And we didn't do a ton of shows. For 4 years, I played in this band. We did a lot of working and reworking of original material. And I learned an awful lot about the backbone of how songs are put together and stuff. I could do all this stuff prior to then, but really it never had the opportunity to be in a writing experience on that side of the fence. So it really tuned me into how things work as a whole a lot better. It was a very good learning experience. And our big highlight, we did do an opening show at the Rave Theater in Milwaukee for a Steve Vai show, which was very cool. On one hand, very not cool on some others, but we won't get into all that. And we recorded some stuff. That's one of the few bands I actually have recordings from. I'll give them to you so you can play little clips or whatever. But that one, we had drummers come, drummers go situation stuff going on, and it just kind of fizzled out. I was really burnt out personally. I had some personal issues, things going on, changing in my life, as well as I was really burnt out on how hard we were working, and I felt like we weren't getting anywhere. Nothing against anyone, just the way things were and the way I was taking them at the time. So I stepped down from that. Man, everyone played bass.
Connie's awesome.
I can't even remember who all, necessarily. Let me think of... I know it was Connie and I. There was Kyle Reese was playing bass. Doug, what is Doug's last name? Kramer? Doug Kramer.
Yeah.
And who was our drummer? I think we had a couple drummers. Some other Dooley played guitar with some other guys.
Maybe.
But,
I don't know. Gosh, I've played with so many.
That was, well, my first Ellendorf was with Peace Pipe in 2005, I believe it was.
Okay.
So that's how I got introduced to that whole scene. I think it stopped happening a year or so after that for a little while. For a few years, there just wasn't an Ellendorf.
Right.
And then they fired back up, I think, in like 2011.
Right.
And I was playing with Three Jack Voodoo. That's the band the guys I had met when I moved to Peoria. I met my ex-wife, and she lived here, and Derek Bachtold, the drummer from the Humans, or Sons of Science band. He was playing drums in this band. It was like a 70s classic rock cover band, you know? And he kept asking me to come, and it's like, man, Peoria's a long drive for rehearsal every week and everything from Streeter, Illinois. But everything just kind of lined up, and I ended up moving here. I've been here ever since. That was 2007. I got hooked up with Three Jack Voodoo. That was Tim Foth on guitar, me on guitar, Derek Bachtold on drums, and Tim Gillick was playing bass. And eventually Derek, Danny Joe Haley came in and took Derek's place on drums. And eventually his brother Brad was playing bass. And eventually that band turned into Captain Beam Driver. It was just the Haley brothers and I. And we did that for a while. We played a few Ellendorfs. Might remember me climbing on the roof. Everyone thought that was awesome. Gimmicky shit, but it's a fun memory.
Works, right?
Exactly. It's funny how I spend my whole life learning to play instruments and sing and everything, and then the thing that everyone remembers me for is climbing on a roof at Ellendorf. No complaints. At least people know who I am. Stephanie Takata was looking for someone to play guitar with her and do some stuff, and I got a hold of her and we started working together. It would have been probably around maybe 2013-ish. And we started doing shows as Gil Kata, and eventually she started singing some shows with Captain Beam Driver as well. We had so many different names for her. Captain Bean Cotta and all kinds of different stuff, whatever. But that went on. I think she started putting Fanny Ray and the Soul Shakers together, and so eventually Captain Bean Driver just kind of fizzled out. And I didn't do too much of anything band-wise for a couple years after that. I started like doing a one-man show of Pink Floyd stuff, basically. I had downloaded some backing tracks that I was able to customize and pull the parts I needed to pull out, the vocal parts and guitar parts, and just play along to this. And I did that for a little bit. At first it was fun, but it started to feel like guitarioke after a while. But alrighty, that brings us to this one's Pink. Well, I was doing the thing, the one-man band Pink Floyd stuff, and Jeff Eaton was talking, I believe, with Dustin Waters about whatever, and Dustin had brought up that him and John McLaughlin were talking about putting a Pink Floyd tribute together. And Jeff told them to get a hold of me. And then after he spoke to him, he got a hold of me and told me to get a hold of them. So I messaged Dustin, I believe, and told him I was interested. And they had put an ad up and were waiting on a response for a bass player and a keyboardist. Paul Bennis, who was still with us, he answered the ad for the keyboards, and David Ward was playing bass. After about 2 rehearsals, our idea at first was we're not going to take it too awful seriously. It's just going to be kind of for fun. We might do a handful of shows a year or something. And after a rehearsal or two, we realized we were a lot more into it than any of us were talking about being at the first. And Dave said that he didn't have enough time to dedicate to us, so he stepped down. And that's when Steve Barnes, we asked Steve to come play. And he stepped right in, man. And it wasn't long. We were doing shows. We played our first show at our bass player now. He owned the club, Bartonville. What was it called? Stone Country.
Yeah.
And we played our first show there. And a bunch of people showed up. Like we weren't really expecting.
I was one of them.
Because nobody knew who we were. I don't know, we had about 100 people there or so, maybe. Which was far more than we expected, because we didn't really advertise. But it went over well, and then we got asked to play the Heart of Illinois Fair. No, wait, our second show was Kickaboo Kickback. It was a little festival that only happened 1 year. I think they were hoping to make it an annual thing, but it just didn't gel. We played the Kickaboo Kickback. That was our second show, and man, it was so cool. The crowd just ate it up, and it got us all extremely excited about things. And then we got asked to do the Heart of Illinois Fair with a band called the Schwag, Grateful Dead tribute, and we had an hour slot open in for them. And from there, things just have kind of taken off. We started getting asked to do some gigs out of town, and Steve Barnes wasn't really prepared to travel. He wasn't interested in doing the travel. And stepped down as bassist because he was taking a supervisor job and was losing the amount of time he was going to have to dedicate to things as well. And that's when Rob stepped in, Harold Robinson, on bass for us. And that's the lineup that we're still performing with. We're having, man, great times. The Schwag had contacted us about playing in Arkansas at Birdfest, and I think it was 2018. And they actually contacted us the year before to do it, and we weren't able to because Steve didn't want to travel. So the Schwag was playing at Kenny's. I went up and I talked to Jimmy myself and told him we had a new bassist and we would be able to travel, and he contacted us to do Birdfest, and that was our first big show playing with the Schwag, and we've done a number of them since. Well, musically, my influences, I don't even know if I realized that I was being musically influenced, but I had this tremendous love of cartoons growing up. I mean, what kid doesn't, but I still do, adult and otherwise. I love cartoons. I think they're a brilliant art form. And what I didn't realize at a young age, I do now more so, but the music that was in Tom and Jerry and Popeye and just those old cartoons, you know, Warner Brothers. Tom and Jerry was one of my favorites, and Looney Tunes. The music was brilliant. Tell me you don't remember a bunch of it, and I'll call you a liar. Kill the Rabbit. I mean, it's fucking some of the best stuff ever. So that's probably my first music influence, really. Classical, cartoonish style orchestrated stuff. The first record I ever remember putting on and listening to was Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guy. I was probably 5 years old and just learned how to put a record on and scratch the hell out of my mom's needles. But I was listening to Wild and Crazy Guy. I could probably lip sync King Tut before I was 6 years old. And I don't know, I was into zanier stuff, I guess, like kids get into. I remember liking Sha Na Na a lot. So doo-wop was kind of an early love of mine, music-wise. I still get into like the oldies style doo-wop songs and stuff. There's, you know, nostalgia attached to it. And I remember finding a cassette tape in the street one day of The Cars. I don't remember the name of the album, but it had You Might Think, it had Hello Again. That might have been the album name, Hello Again. I don't remember exactly, but I remember being really into The Cars for a little bit. And then, I don't know, man, I started hearing heavier stuff, like when I was starting to become interested in guitar, but wasn't as interested as I probably am now. I remember, man, MTV was just starting to become popular. It had been out a while, but didn't have it where we were. But I remember seeing like the Crazy Train video come on. Randy Rhoads. Just the sound of, man, holy shit, man. It made my hair stand on end, and I had to fucking learn how to do that. So that was probably the biggest Kickstarter. I got into the band Manowar a lot, and also a big heavy influence of Ross the Boss, who I got to meet. I got to sing with just a little bit at one of his shows. One of the coolest things that ever happened to me. But heavy influence on me. Part of why I play with speed that I do is that guy right there. And you know, that I was really into Metallica at the time. I kind of grew out of that. But so I was playing a bunch of that. Some of the first bands I was in played a bunch of Metallica. We were into Iron Maiden, Testament, kind of stuff. Probably Deadline was probably heavily influenced the most by, say, Iron Maiden and Testament. Like our original material sounded along those lines. A little thrashy, a little bit melodic, kind of mixed together. And I took a substance one night. We'll call it acid. And I watched The Doors, which was a very awesome experience. My cat's fucking with your camera.
You get him in there like...
He's rubbing it. He's rubbing all over it.
Like John Masalia's dogs.
Well, anyways, I phone rang. It was my cousin. He goes, "Man, you got to come watch this movie." So I go over to where he's at. They're watching Pink Floyd The Wall. I watched Pink Floyd The Wall and on acid. And holy shit, man. It just all made sense to me. It still does. I mean, not everybody's going to get it, but it just spoke to me like nothing ever had, you know? It kind of snapped me out of that metal guitar player. I don't want to call it a funk, man. I'm glad I did it. I still play the stuff sometimes, but got me more into playing some stuff that wasn't that, if you will. Pink Floyd really set the stage to go down the classic rock route, and David Gilmour, man, the catalog, Pink Floyd catalog, just seems to be endless. I'm still discovering stuff that probably should have started listening to a long time ago. But man, this one's Pink has really made me step it up. I always thought I knew a lot of Pink Floyd until I got in this band. I thought I knew it well until I got in this band. And we're 5 music critics all together in a band, so it's pretty fun. We all really love what we're doing, and we really critique it, whether it's ourselves or whatever. If something isn't right, we're trying to figure out why. And I guess that's why this band works, and more so than many of them have ever seemed to, for me. I've also learned to, I don't know, when I stopped drinking in 2013, I had to start playing shows without being drunk, man. I just really started to live a lot more in the moment, I think. Certainly in the musical moment, where that was being dulled by alcohol. Not judging anyone, but it's just not for me anymore. I certainly believe I play a whole lot better, I perform a whole lot better than I ever did. So I'm happy for that. Not just for myself, but for the audience, man, because it's really what it is all about when you're doing a show. Is finding a way to convey whatever emotion you're feeling from the music you're performing and expressing that to your audience. And whether they pick up on the exact same thing or whatever, they pick up on whatever they pick up on. And you feed each other. It's a beautiful thing I'm sure you've experienced as an artist.
Many times.
That's what it's all about, man. Ain't about me, ain't about him. It's about that whole thing. And the audience, man, they're absolutely a pivotal part of that, you know. Very important part. Some other very notable influences. Eric Clapton certainly inspired a certain percentage of my guitar playing, and Frank Zappa, big time, man. Inspiration can strike anywhere. That guy is pretty amazing. He's certainly wrote some zany stuff, and he is not he's not for everybody, not for the lighthearted musicians. But heavy influence, man. That guy played the holy hell out of the guitar. And if I could ever play half as good, I'd be a very happy man. About this guitar here. This one, John McLaughlin, the other guitarist from This One's Pink, he builds guitars. And he asked me what I wanted in a guitar. Like if I was having one built, what I'd get. And I told him I really like wood. That was one of, I think my first answer was, I like wood. I told him I really liked spalted maple, so that's what this top is here. I had no idea that they made wooden pick guards, so we got a spalted maple pick guard as well. He stained these, did his magic on them to make them look how they do. And I'll tell you, he does a lot of guitars where he does the aging to them and stuff. But this, I told him, I said, I want it nice and fancy and neat. And this thing was when he gave it to me. This is from me, all this wear and tear. It's not something that he did. Just to point that out. This thing was just, I'll get you a picture of it, of what it looked like before I played the holy hell out of it. It's he also found the wooden pickup covers, wooden knobs. These are all maple. These are flame maple. He does the necks. This is something that's, his necks look like this, all of them. He does really, really neat work. Flame maple. This is an old growth pine back that he torched and sanded back. And I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but all the grain is raised. You can feel the bumps in it.
Yeah, you can see it.
Good. It's really cool. This is old growth pine. And the pickup set are, it's got Seymour Duncan. I think they're SL1 and SL5. I don't remember the exact placements. There's two 1s or 2 5s, I don't remember. The middle pickup is either has this one or this one put there. So it has 2 of the same. John would know the exact pickup set. He did all the wiring, everything on it. I did not get my strap locks that I asked for, but beggars can't be choosers, can they? He built this thing, basically everything I said I'd want in a guitar, and I assumed he was going to charge me for it. He turned right around and gave me the damn thing. I couldn't believe it. Awesome guy, man. One of the best bandmates I've ever had. Like, one of the hardest workers. He always shows up knowing his shit. He's a great performer. Great voice, man. One of the best voices I've ever worked with. John just sounds good, man. And he builds great guitars. I wish he'd build me 5 more, but I can't afford it. And I can't expect him to keep giving them to me.
Well, unless he wants to, right?
Yeah. I have had him do some other work for me, like this guitar here. I had him do the paint job on it for me, and he wired it for me. It's got the same pickup set and everything, same specs as this guitar here, as far as wiring goes. This pick guard is made by a guy, I believe his name is Mike Quick, at a place called Quick Guards, quickguards.com. You can find him at. He's out of Florida and he custom makes these. I've ordered a few of them. I'll show you on some of the other guitars. The pick guards I've gotten from him. This was a PV Predator I picked up used. It's a 95 Predator. It does have my strap locks. I love those things. And it's got color changing paint. If you can get it to show up on film or not, I don't know. We'll make it happen at some point, so you have some footage of it. But when the light hits it different, it turns purple or green, blue, some sparkly looking. It's very, very cool. Cameras usually don't do it justice. You gotta come and see this one, guys. This one is my G&L Legacy HB for the humbucker. It's a switchable, splittable. It has a PTB electronics that I'm pretty sure G&L came up with that. It means passive treble bass. This is basically a high-end roll-off and a low-end roll-off. Pretty cool function. I really like it, and I'm considering having some of my other guitars changed over to the same setup as this. This is another Mike Quick guard. It's the same as the first one you saw, but it's silver and black paisley instead of the multicolored psychedelic paisley. Great guitar, man. I really love this one. This was my #1 for years and years. One of the best playing Squier Strats I've ever picked up right here. It's a great guitar. I didn't change the pickups or anything in it because it sounded fantastic. Nice and glassy, very Stratty sounding guitar. Very fun pick guard.
Got it.
Cool. This my dad gave to my son. He owned a pawn shop for a while and acquired it through there. And this thing was pretty gross, man. It had probably a 1/4 inch of grime just coated on this thing, on the face of it. All the gold was green. The fretboard was green. I think it was growing fuzz. He asked me if I'd clean it up. I got it all cleaned up. It had a Bigsby on it that didn't function. A bunch of stuff wrong. And it had a shim that was probably a 1/4 inch straight, like holding the neck way up, trying to get the Bigsby to function, but it wouldn't. So I tore it all apart, put it back together, and finally got it playing halfway decent. And this thing is awesome. It's kind of rare, Epiphone Casino, because it's Japanese. They as far as I know, only made a Japanese Epiphones for a couple years. I don't know the exact years, but early 70s. That's all I kind of know about it. This is an early 70s Epiphone Casino. Walnut. I love the aging on the binding. Just, it's yellowed really nice. Beautiful guitar. It has buttons. They had like a pad on the back of this. I still have it somewhere. It looks like denim and gold leaf. It's hideous, but I think it was to protect the finish, buckle rash. And probably, this is really noisy when it rubs against you. I think it might have helped reduce that somewhat. I don't know for sure what the function was other than that. But I pulled the pick guard off because just look at it. It was covering up a beautiful, beautiful chunk of wood. So was that 1/4 inch of grime that I scraped off of it. This thing did not look like the same guitar. Very pleasant surprise. My dad gave it to my son, and then I ended up trading my 5150 combo to him for it. This guitar was my dad's. He purchased it, well, he traded a G&L Broadcaster for it, which he probably wishes he still had. I wish he still had. Very rare guitar now, because G&L was forced to change the name of them, which ASAT Classic. ASAT is what they changed Broadcaster. When Leo sold the company to Fender, Fender argued that the Broadcaster name came with that deal, and they won in court, so he had to change the name of them. But this is an ASAT Classic, and it's a Leo Fender signature, so it's semi-rare. There's a few hundred with a maple board out there. I don't know how many exactly with natural finish, but there aren't very many. I feel really lucky to have this one. My dad gave this to me. He used to play it all the time, and he started playing acoustic guitars more. And this was sitting around, and I always told him how much I loved it, so he gave it to me. This is my Taylor acoustic. It's a CE414. This was gifted to me by a very good friend of mine, Ben Swiderski. Someone introduced him to a woman he had never met whose husband had passed away. I couldn't even tell you her name, honestly, or his name. But she was trying to find something to do with his instruments, and he tried to give her some money for this, and she just wouldn't take it. She gave it to him, telling him, I just want the things to be played. And he felt guilty because it was sitting in his closet for about 3 years or so. And he said, man, this is yours now, and I about shit myself. So I play it. It gets played. So the woman's wishes that it gets played have come true. Good times.
Nice.
This thing is awesome, dude. Like, I've been really, really fortunate as far as that goes. Like, to be gifted some of the instruments and stuff that I have. Like, part of sounding as good as you do is the instrument. I mean, it's not everything. Yeah, obviously, I mean, anyone who can play should be able to make a cheap one sound good. I personally believe that. I've played cheap stuff my whole life, believe me. I've made it sound good, but good stuff sounds better. Not gonna lie.